You thought you did everything right. You went in first, exactly like a duelist is supposed to. You entered and your team didn't follow. They sat back at the choke and you died alone on site, and your team's exec is dead on arrival. So whose fault was that? Your team's fault, surely, right? A bunch of chickens, too scared to run out on site with you. Well, what if I told you that you might be the problem? Your entries might feel aggressive, like you're doing your job. I mean, you're getting onto site after all. But the truth is, most duelists have no idea what they actually need to do on entry. They think just diving onto site is enough. And attacking is actually the easier side of playing duelist to figure out. I mean, you should probably have a general idea, right? Lead the team in entry like you've been doing. But what about defense? Could you actually give me a succinct answer of what duelists are meant to do on defense? Most of you probably can't. Duelists are often picked because of how they can help attacking sides, but they're just as important to be played well on defense. It might not be your agent picks or your mechanics holding you back, you're just using them wrong because you don't understand what you're actually supposed to be doing with them. And the crazy thing is, almost nobody does, because the same recycled advice isn't actually helpful. How many times have you heard, get the first frag or create space in how to play duelist? Create space is one of the most misused, misunderstood phrases in all of Valorant. So in this video, we're going to show you what really matters when you play duelist, why using a little bit of brain power can drastically change how successful you are on duelist, and maximize the return on all of those hours you spent refining your mechanical aim. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, maybe my aim is actually the problem, we've got you covered too. We've got world-class aim courses on our website designed to take you from beginner to pro. They cover everything you need to know along every step of the way to make improving your aim easy and simple. Having crispy aim in Valorant is nowhere near as hard as you think it is. You've probably just been practicing the wrong way. And our courses make sure you're getting the right information so you stop wasting your time. That's less time researching how to aim videos and more time playing the game. And more time playing the game means ranking up. And we're so confident in our methods that we provide a rank up guarantee. That's right, if you don't rank up at least 5 divisions while actively using our service, you can get your money back guaranteed. Which means you've got nothing to lose by coming to check it out by clicking the link in the description below. In this guide, we're going to show you why you suck at duelist and show you the easy to apply fixes that'll actually work in your games. But why should you listen to me? Well, I'm Stackman2. I'm a former Valorant coach. I competed at Ascension and have coached a number of former and current tier 1 pros. And across all of the teams that I've worked with, I've had several players hit rank 1 on the leaderboard while coaching them. If I can help them improve, I can certainly help you. By the end of this video, you will understand the difference between how every elite duelist in the world plays versus the average ranked duelist. Whether they're Primi on Jett, Durka on Raze, or Spike on Neon, they all adopt this concept when entering. And that concept is something we call gravity. And once you see it in action, something will click and you'll never attempt a site execute the same way again. Listen, climbing as duelist doesn't take god tier aim. Sure, it definitely helps, but I'd argue having god tier aim is actually more important on the sentinel role. Sentinels are the one taking more 1v1 fights or taking 1v3 fights on site. But for duelists, there's something more important. Duelists need god tier positioning and moment-to-moment analysis. There's so many duelists in mid to low elo who actually have better raw aim than most of their opponents, but always lose fights because they over-rely on it, make bad decisions, get into bad spots, and take unwinnable fights. Because the only skill they've built up is their aim and nothing else. And positioning beats aim every time. I'd bet my life savings that anyone watching this video could kill 10s on Jett entering on your head if you were standing around the right corner with a judge. So you need to improve this side of being a duelist. And luckily, it doesn't take memorizing every lineup in the game. It simply takes understanding one idea that nobody ever explains to you. So stick with me. But before we can get into proper entering philosophy, I need to make sure that you do actually have the right idea on duelist and you're not making the mistake that every other role complains about. Let me paint you a picture. Round 7, attack. You're on Jett, ascent. Full buy, your controller smokes, your initiator flashes, everything is set up perfectly. Your team is in B main behind you, waiting for you to go out, and what do? You peek the corner, then another one, then you back off and peek again, and you jiggle, and then you back off, and you're looking for a first blood. A first blood will help get your team on site, but the defenders don't peek. 15 seconds go by and the round is dead and you missed your chance to take site. Now the defenders have rotated, your own team's util is down, and your team, frustrated and out of patience, knowing knowing they have no other option, start trickling out onto site one at a time with zero coordination. You get left in a 1v4 and get 2 kills before you die, and you think, oh, I could have gotten those 2 more, and your stats will look good after the game, but you're actually the reason you lost. You didn't do your job, and it doesn't matter how good your stats are. If you lose RR either way. So now you have a choice. You can be happy going 26, 13, and 6 in bronze, silver, and gold lobbies, or you can actually start ranking up and carrying yourself into diamond, ascendant, and immortal. And to do that, you need to start doing your job. So what is your job as a duelist? Get kills? Wrong. Entry frag? Closer, but still wrong. Create space? You don't even know what that means yet. The actual answer can involve all of those things, but there's a specific difference in how you approach it. Your job as a duelist, how I say it, is to get your team onto site. That's it. That's your entire role on attack. If you entry onto site, but your team doesn't follow for whatever reason, you did something wrong. And you don't need a top frag or have the prettiest scoreboard in the lobby. You just need to get 5 sets of feet onto site so the spike goes down and you win the round. Did you know in Valorant, getting the spike down as attackers on average increases your win rate on attack for any given round by over 20%. Attack and defense win rates are fairly close to 50-50 in Valorant on every map. But as soon as the spike goes down, on average, attackers win over 70% of rounds. So that is how you win games. And if you made it to this far in the video, you're clearly serious about improving. So I don't want to hear any complaining about having to do the dirty work on Duelist. It's the same kind of mindset when people aspire to be an elite athlete or artist. You see the end product, players on the big stage, but you don't see all of the hours in the gym, in the rehearsal room, grinding to get there. Your Immortal Jett montage is built on the fundamentals of the grind, and your reward is a shiny rank and a sick video that you can show off to the world. So I mean it when I say, if your team doesn't get onto site, it's your fault. Even if you quote unquote do everything right, if they don't follow you, you got it wrong. You not only have to adapt to how your opponent defends, you have to adapt to how your team is playing. And sometimes that's actually yelling at them through the mic to follow you on site. Vocal leadership is a hidden skill that many of the best duelists in the world, like Zekken, have. That's not part of today's video, but if you'd like to see that, please let us know in the comments below. So how do you actually fix your entries? Well, it's going to seem a bit counterintuitive. You're a duelist. You're playing the role that, as Valorant describes themselves, are self-sufficient fraggers who their team expects through abilities and skills to get high frags and seek out engagements first. But what I'm telling you is the biggest mistake that duelists in low to mid elo make is hunting for the first frag as fast as humanly possible, which if you're not careful puts your team at risk of not having their duelist for entering site. And that is your #1 goal, remember. Without you, your team will have a horrendous time entering site. Remember, they're just a bunch of helpless support characters. What will they ever do without you? No, but seriously, there's a reason why duelists are often the star of the show. And the star athletes who make the big bucks are often covered in metaphorical bubble wrap. They're contractually not allowed to go dirt bike riding or skydiving or whatever might seem dangerous or cause them to get injured. And you should treat yourself in the same way. Up until the moment that you enter site, every bit of space that you take up until that point should be measured, methodical, and supported by util to flush out defenders playing ahead of site. That doesn't mean you can't peak first. It just means wait for your team's utility or use your own. The site fight is going to be chaotic, and you can't guarantee that you're going to get anything better than a series of 50-50 duels. However, you can control every moment that leads up to that. Bad duelists get punished by their ego because they swing into an off-angle chamber who picks you and then teleports back to site, and now your team gets locked out. Now you've managed to actually get to the point of entering safely, all in one piece, no problems. There's still plenty that can go wrong. And I'm not done with this paradoxical advice. When you entry, your #1 goal shouldn't be to seek out kills, especially when your team might be slow to follow. I seriously mean this when I say do not worry about kills. You will get them. They will come. By virtue of leading the pack, you're going to see the most engagements out of anyone regardless, which means opportunities for kills will fall in your lap if you don't go out desperately seeking them. Nobody likes a desperate Andy. Think about this. What's the worst case scenario when you enter and look for a kill as quickly as possible? Well, it's worse than you think. You run in, find the anchor, die to them. Your team wasn't wasn't able to follow you in because they got stalled by a molly or whatever, and now they're stuck in main, one player down, util spent is on cooldown. That's not net neutral, that's significantly worse than before you committed to site. Even if you kill the anchor and get traded by their teammate, you're still in a worse position. Even if your team isn't properly stalled, but they are just a bunch of muppets who are too slow and should have been able to push out onto site, why would you commit to this line of play if the risk is greater than the reward? And I'm not saying don't entry and don't dive into site. You just need to change what you do from that point. Instead of looking for kills, look to survive. Go watch any round of Aspas playing Jett. He'll smoke, dash into the smoke, and then use his second smoke to isolate angles and bring himself cover so he can extend the length of the threat of his entry for his team to flood out behind him. Once you start playing like this, you'll understand the power this has. When you're able to enter onto site and survive, you're doing two major things that we're going to talk about in this video. What creating space actually is, and the idea of gravity. So let's clear up the confusion about creating space. Space is all Valorant is. And I understand this is a YouTube video about getting better at Duelist, so I'm not going to go too deep into the science or game theory of it right now. Deep dives of those kind of topics are what you'll find on our website courses, where we can teach you things in the levels of detail that you can't fit into YouTube videos. They're often not algorithm friendly, so if we posted them to YouTube, you'd probably miss it. But by putting them on our website, those who actually want to rank up can go and find them. But that's besides the point. What I'm trying to say is Valorant is simply a game of fighting for control of space and spaces. At any given moment, space can be controlled, uncontrolled, or contested. If one team has a player in any given space, they control that space. If both teams have a player in that same space, then that space is contested. Capiche? Think about site. That is space on the map that defenders want to hold and prevent attackers from taking away from them. But that applies to every inch of a Valorant map, every second of a Valorant round. Taking space is moving into space and taking control of it. Holding space is staying in a currently controlled space and maintaining control of it. Creating space is about muddling the gap between controlled borders. The most typical example of this is what we've already been talking about, duelists dashing onto site. As a duelist dashes onto site, they leave a wake behind them that ripples out through the space and creates a question about who's actually in control of this right now. A moment ago, it was controlled by defenders, but now Jett has pulled that into question, because even though she moved through it, she never really took control of it though, did she? But why is that helpful to know? Well, because now you understand that space creation is an effect caused by actions, not the action itself. And that's the second major pillar of Valorant's core gameplay loop. A simple baseline of cause and effect. Player shoots gun, enemy takes damage. Player throws flash, teammates get flashed. People will tell you that you need to create space like it's the cause. You need to create space so your team can enter site. But it's actually backwards. This advice misses what you really need to learn, which is what can you or should you do here where space being created is the effect. It is the answer to the question. What is the cause that brings the effect of created space? The thing is, there's not just one answer, there's multiple. There's so many contextual factors to this. But once you start considering them and deliberately thinking about how you will entry, how your actions on entry will cause space to be created for your team, your duelist game is going to seriously level up. Because all I know is if you enter site and immediately die, the effect of that is definitely not space created. So don't do that. However, when you enter site and live, even for just a couple of seconds, all of a sudden, space is created out of nowhere. Well, not nowhere. It's created by the ripple effect of you getting onto site and living and creating a path for your team to follow. Now, if only I'd set this up as a leading part of the video, which will take us into the next concept to fully complete your entering package. Oh wait, it is. And funnily enough, all of this space creation leads us to the concept of gravity. Now, this isn't a science lesson, but we do need to forget about Valorant for 30 seconds and talk about basketball. If you do watch basketball, you might have heard basketball analysts use the term gravity. Now, if you don't like basketball, that's fine. This applies to any other team sport where you're trying to score a goal on a field or court with a ball. Basketball is just the cleanest example of this concept that's easy to understand. In basketball, every player is a potential threat to score a basket. Some are better than others, which is why they get paid more than their teammates. And some are better at scoring from different parts of the floor. Shaq at the rim, there's never been a greater threat. Shaq way back at the three-point line, nobody cares. Now, if Shaq positions himself close to the basket, defenders have to keep in mind that they have to stay close enough to him to be able to double team him when he gets the ball to prevent him from getting an easy bucket. As soon as one of Shaq's teammates passes the ball to him under the rim, it effectively forces another player to focus on him and leave their man so that they can double team Shaq. And this is the concept of gravity in full effect. And you can see why it's called gravity when you turn these players into planets. As Shaq moves closer to the rim and receives the ball, his threat level increases, and we can represent that by literally increasing his size. This causes nearby defenders to be drawn to him by his gravitational pull. Just like gravity, they don't have a choice, because if they don't move to him, they're going to give up a goal. Now, let's translate this solar system to Valorant. The basket is now Sight, Shaq is now Jett, and the defenders are Killjoy and Sova anchoring Sight. As Jett dashes into Sight, her gravity dramatically increases. Killjoy and Sova must respect the threat of Jett, which draws their attention towards her and away from the entrance of Sight. Because if they ignore her, they die and lose the round. So they must prioritize eliminating her first if she's the only one on site. And this is where understanding the importance of your gravity comes in clutch. A live duelist on site is the largest threat in the game, and therefore has the largest gravitational pull. The more dangerous you look, the more attention, utility, and crosshairs get sucked towards you. Players can't look two places at once, so more attention on you means less at the choke point where 4 teammates are about to run through. Your job as a duelist is to survive on site long enough that your gravity sucks in defenders for long enough that the rest of your team can flood into site without being shot at. Because running onto site through the main entrance through a smoke is the most vulnerable your teammates will be. They're effectively running in blind with a dozen angles to clear, and the defenders know exactly where they're coming from, which is why it's so important to live, because as soon as you go down, your gravity dissipates. If you go down too quickly, defenders are released and they can return their focus to the site entrance before your team makes it out. And now we're back to the same situation that we spoke about earlier in the video. Your team locked inside of main or getting cleaned up as they run onto site. As soon as you as the duelist go down, attention goes to the next biggest threat, which is the rest of your team. And they don't have the movement tools that you have to temporarily bypass that hole. And this is why your entries don't work. You're too focused on yourself, getting frags. Even with good intentions, it's costing you games. Staying alive matters more than getting kills when you entry. Without getting philosophical and deep, your life matters. And with getting philosophical and deep, your life matters, just in case you needed to hear that today. But getting back to Valorant, staying alive matters more than getting kills when you entry. A kill is always a great bonus. You're never going to be mad about it, but it's never the main objective. And there's nothing that says you have to get the first kill. You can get the second, third, and fourth. That's fine. And if you want to get those, you need to be alive for it. So to begin actually tracking how valuable your entries are, instead of measuring them by what you shoot, measure them by where your team is when you stop shooting. Now, here's the thing about gravity. Everything I showed you, staying alive, getting to depth, pulling defenders off of the choke, that's the foundation. But it's genuinely just the surface of how deep this idea goes. Because gravity isn't only an entry concept, it's a retake concept. It's a post-blank concept. It's how you should be thinking about lurking, clutching, 1vx scenarios. Everything about every single round can be influenced by gravity. How you generate it, how you manipulate it, how you play against it, all of that changes completely depending on your agent, the map you're on, the situation in the round. Now, obviously, we've spoken a lot about entering and attacking on Duelist. We mentioned it at the start of the video. It's what the role is built around. But the defensive side of Duelist is hardly ever spoken about. And it's one of the biggest skill gaps that Duelists have, because there's no set structure for them to follow. Unlike attacking as a Duelist, where it's quite a linear play pattern. Yes, there's absolutely optimization like we've just gone through, but on defense, you have so many more options and functionally play like a flex pick. So how do you know if you're playing defense correctly? Well, we've got a couple of template rounds that you can use to apply to the different types of attacks you might face. The first thing to note is you are not an anchor, not at least as a movement duelist, which is what we're focusing on. Phoenix is a great anchor, but that's besides the point. Just like their label, movement duelists always want to be moving around the map on defense, with one exception. There's 2 roles that you can play that allow you to stay active while serving different purposes. Floater is a defensive term for a defender who plays towards the middle of the map and roams quickly. Wherever you see the attackers pop up, you will quickly rotate safely to that side of the map. Generally, you'll want to hedge towards the weak site to give it extra support. If you have a sentinel with stall on A, then you probably want to be slightly more towards B, because your sentinel's natural ability to stall will buy you more time to rotate towards them. And the reason why duelists excel in this role is because 1, they don't have have any real stall util, so there's no point them anchoring on site. 2, they want to be fighting with their teammates to capitalize on their util. So this way you can make it to the major fight of the round either way. And 3, it allows you to play into your movement or safety abilities, which don't always get as much value on defense if you're not actively using them. So playing in the floater role allows you at the start of the round to look for an early peek with a dash back to safety before rotating to the threatened site. The other main template is playing for extremity control. This is where you'll start the round on the outer edge of the map, typically A main or B main. The start of these rounds you have to be careful, so you want some initial support to help you get onto a line or look for that first kill. There's 2 successful outcomes that you have here. 1 is if the attackers are there, then you get out safely. If you get a kill for getting out, then that's a double win. 2 is if the attackers aren't there, then you're able to establish deeper control. If main is cleared with an info ability, then you can push up, and if attackers have shown themselves to be present elsewhere, then you can begin pushing forward for deeper control. From this deeper position, you effectively have an early detection alarm so your team can shift to the other side of the map, knowing that they'll have plenty of time to rotate back to you, thanks to your forward push. You'll see this a lot in pro play where teams invest to get their duelist with an operator onto a deeper line. This allows them to play really heavy towards the other side of the map, forcing the attackers into the op or into a stacked site. If you don't have an op though, from this deeper position, you're in a great spot to begin flanking on a good timing. In ranked in particular, you can find extremely fast flank timings because you began pushing near the start of the round and can just continue moving through. Of course, you do have to be careful about teams or even individual lurkers like sentinels baiting you out. So don't be doing this so often that it becomes predictable and leaves you vulnerable for an easy kill. The other reason to play for extremity control as a duelist is because on some maps, fighting for main is really important. It can be easier to defend from main than from site. So it's important that you get comfortable fighting in mains as a duelist, particularly duelists with escape tools. When you defend on site, you don't get as much value as your escape tools because there's nothing to stop the defenders from just continuing to run at you. But when you defend in main, you use your escape tool to get back through a choke point into site. Now the defenders have to fight through that choke point if they want to run you down. And the third type of setup is when you have a sniper rifle, the op, the outlaw. My preference is to always take my op to the opposite side of my anchor. Quite often that'll be setting up in main for extremity control, but sometimes that's a deeper line on site. And that forces your opponents to choose between a rock and a hard place. Sometimes mid is the area that needs your help as well though, so don't be frightened to go there. Typically as a duelist, you want to have an op as often as possible. This gun is broken. It's only balanced around your skill in using it and people playing around it correctly. And let me tell you, pros don't even play around it that well. I can guarantee you ranked players don't either. But no matter how you approach a round, always follow this rule of thumb for aggressive defense. Play your get one and get out. Push out, take your angle, take your duel, whatever. Immediately retreat or even dash out if needed after your first shot. You're not trying to win a 1v5, you're generating information and disruption and getting value out of that. It's always more beneficial for attackers to turn a 5v5 into a 4v4. That pokes more holes in the defense than it does weaken the attacker's value. By simply staying alive, you're forcing attackers to use more resources than they can practically expect to take with good efficacy. That's just the early round setup advice and mid-round rotations. What about retakes? Well, retakes are just when you cosplay attackers on defense. So everything you just learned about entry and gravity applies to retaking too. The advantage that you get when retaking is you'll often have more than a single entrance that you can use, so you can use your gravity to create double the amount of space for your team. If this changed how you see the role even a little, that's our aim here, to improve how you play the games. So please hit the like button so the algorithm feeds it to the next hard-stuck duelist who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss our next video. And a final reminder, if you want to rank up fast, do yourself a favor, check out the SkillCapped courses on our website. Make the most of that money back guarantee. If you don't rank up within 5 divisions while actively using our service, you get your money back. I mean, you got nothing to lose. That's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.